The grand hall of the Galactic Council shimmered with light that bounced off the polished stone walls. 500 representatives from across the galaxy sat in rising tiers that circled the central speaking platform. Today was important. Today, they would decide the fate of the newest spacefaring species, humans. Ambassador Sarah Chen stood alone on the small platform in the middle of the hall. She was the only human allowed to attend this meeting. Her simple blue uniform looked plain, next to the colorful robes and elaborate body decorations of the alien representatives. But Sarah stood tall, her face calm despite the whispers that filled the room. High Counselor Zexitara rose from his seat. His tall, thin body was covered in shimmering scales that changed color with his mood. Right now, they glowed with a faint, purple light that showed his feeling of superiority. The room fell silent as he prepared to speak. The Galactic Council has completed its assessment of Earth and its inhabitants, Zexitara announced, his voice echoing through the chamber. We have studied their history, technology, and development as a species. Sarah watched him carefully. The humans had expected this moment for years. They had prepared for it in ways the Council could not imagine. Humans have only recently developed space travel, Zexitara continued. Their technology is basic. Their planet has a history filled with war and violence. They fight among themselves over resources that could be shared. They damage their own environment, and they have existed as a unified planetary government for less than 50 years. Murmurs of agreement spread through the hall. Many of the older species looked down at humans. They saw Earth as a primitive planet full of dangerous, unpredictable creatures who might cause trouble if given access to advanced technology. Therefore, Zexitara said, raising his long-fingered hand, by unanimous decision of the 7 elder races, humans are classified as a Class 3 limited potential species. Sarah's expression didn't change, but her hands tightened into fists at her sides. This classification was the Council's way of keeping humanity trapped and controlled. It meant Earth would be blocked from learning advanced technologies. Human ships would not be allowed to travel beyond their own solar system, and Earth would be placed under the protection of the Volari Imperium, the most aggressive and militaristic of the elder races. The Volari will ensure that humans develop along appropriate lines, Zexitara said, nodding toward the Volari representatives. They were large beings with thick gray skin and multiple eyes that never seemed to blink. A protection fleet has already been dispatched to the Sol system. The Volari leader, General Krass, smiled with his wide mouth full of sharp teeth. We will take good care of the humans, he said. His deep voice made the promise sound like a threat. Following tradition, Zexitara turned to Sarah. The representative from Earth may now address the Council. All eyes turned to Sarah. The Council members expected her to beg for a better classification or to make empty threats. New species always did when faced with the Council's judgment. Sarah stepped forward and looked around the room slowly, making eye contact with as many representatives as possible. When she finally spoke, her voice was calm and clear. Thank you, High Counselor. I have only this to say. You have made a grave miscalculation. For humanity's sake and yours, I hope you discover it quickly. Confused looks passed between Council members. This was not the reaction they expected. Some laughed nervously. Others frowned in confusion. Zexitara's scales flashed yellow with annoyance. Your statement has been recorded, he said coldly. This session is now closed. The human representative will be escorted back to Earth before the Volari protection fleet arrives. As guards moved towards Sarah, she spoke again. One last thing, High Counselor. Earth has a saying, don't judge a book by its cover. It means appearances can be deceiving. We have judged your species by its actions and achievements, not its appearance, Zexitara replied dismissively. Guards, please remove the human. Sarah allowed herself to be led from the chamber. The faintest smile appeared on her lips as the doors closed behind her. Within hours, all communication channels between Earth and the Galactic Alliance were cut off. Human ships in Council space were taken and locked down. The Volari Protection Fleet, led by Admiral Kralthox on his massive warship Inevitable Dominion, prepared to enter the Sol system with 50 heavily armed vessels. on her small ship returning. To Earth, Sarah sent a coded message. Declaration complete. Response protocol authorized. Back on Earth in a deep underground facility, General Marcus Rivera received the message. He looked at the team of scientists, military leaders, and government officials gathered around him. It's time, he said simply. The Council has classified us exactly as we predicted. Operation Shadow Web begins now. Around the table, people nodded grimly. They had hoped for better from the Galactic Council, but they had planned for this outcome for decades. How long until the Volari fleet reaches Earth? Asked Dr. Patel, the lead scientist. 3 days, Rivera replied. More than enough time to activate our systems, and the Council has no idea what's coming. Asked another official. Rivera shook his head. Ambassador Chen confirmed they accepted our false data completely. They think we're primitive, divided, and harmless. He smiled. They're about to learn how wrong they are. Across Earth and throughout the solar system, hidden technologies began powering up. Systems that had been disguised or kept dormant were activated. The humans had known this day might come ever since they discovered they were not alone in the galaxy. While pretending to be less advanced, they had been preparing their response. The Volari fleet commander, Admiral Kralthox, stood on the bridge of his massive warship. He looked at the holographic display showing the Sol system. He was not worried about this mission. Humans were weak and primitive. They would surrender quickly when faced with superior power. Set course for Earth, he ordered. We will show these humans their proper place in the galaxy. He had no idea that humans had been planning for this moment for years. He did not know that Earth was not what it appeared to be, and he could not imagine how quickly the Council would regret their declaration. The stage was set. The Council had made their judgment, and humanity was ready to show the galaxy exactly what they were capable of. Admiral Kralthox stood on the command deck of the Inevitable Dominion, the largest ship in the Volari fleet. Through the massive viewing window, he could see the edge of the Sol system coming into view. The yellow star at its center grew larger as they approached. Status report, Kralthox ordered, his 4 eyes scanning the data displays around him. We are entering the outer boundary of the Sol system, Admiral, reported his second-in-command. Sensors detect no defensive fleet or weapon systems. Human space traffic appears normal and civilian in nature. Kralthox nodded. This was expected. Humans were a Class 3 species with limited technology. They couldn't possibly have anything that would threaten a Volari warship, let alone 50 of them. Curious, said the sensor officer, leaning closer to her screen. I'm not detecting any military installations on their planets or moons either. None at all? Kralthox asked, moving to look at her display. There are structures that appear to be basic military bases, but no orbital defense systems, no weapon platforms, nothing that could stop our fleet. The officer looked confused. It's as if they have no serious defenses at all. Kralthox's mouth formed into what passed for a smile among the Volari. Perhaps they are even weaker than the Council believed. This will be the easiest assignment of my career. As the fleet moved deeper into the system, passing the gas giant Neptune, Communications Officer Zeth Lore spoke up. Admiral, I've been attempting to contact Earth's governments as protocol requires, but I'm receiving no response. No response at all? Kralthox asked, his smooth forehead wrinkling. Their communication networks are active. I can detect signals bouncing between their planets and moons, but they're not acknowledging our transmissions. Kralthox considered this information. Perhaps they are frightened into silence. Or maybe their leaders are arguing about how to respond. He waved a dismissive hand. It doesn't matter. Send the landing parties as planned. The fleet continued forward, now passing the rings of Saturn. Still no sign of human military vessels. No attempt to communicate. No apparent concern about the approaching fleet. This feels wrong, muttered Zeth Lore quietly to the sensor officer. Wouldn't they at least try to talk to us? Or show some kind of reaction? The sensor officer nodded slightly. The humans are acting as if we're not even here. 4 hours later, the fleet reached Earth orbit. The blue planet turned slowly below them, beautiful and seemingly peaceful. Cities glowed on the night side. Aircraft moved in normal patterns. Nothing suggested any alarm about the 50 alien warships now circling their world. "Deploy the landing teams," ordered Kralthox. "First wave to Earth, second to their Mars colony, third to their lunar base. Establish control centers at each location and begin the integration process." 20 shuttlecraft departed from various ships in the fleet, heading toward the 3 destinations. Each carried elite Volari troops trained in species subjugation. They had performed this task many times before on other worlds. 2 hours passed, then 3, then 5. "Admiral," Zethlor's voice was tense. "None of the landing parties have reported in. They should have established control centers by now." Kralthox frowned. "Send messages to all teams. Demand immediate status reports." The communications officer tried repeatedly but received no response from any landing team. "Send second teams to each location," Kralthox ordered. "Tell them to find the first teams and report back immediately." Another wave of shuttles departed. This time they carried twice as many troops, all on high alert. The second teams reached the landing sites and found nothing. No signs of the first teams. No evidence of their shuttles. The Earth sites were just ordinary cities with humans going about their business. The Mars colony and lunar base showed similar activity. Humans working normally, showing no awareness of any Volari presence. When the second teams tried to interact with humans, they got strange responses. The humans would look confused, claim they had seen no other aliens, and then simply walk away or return to their tasks. Back on the inevitable Dominion, Kralthox paced the command deck. "This is impossible," he growled. 30 shuttles and over 200 troops don't just disappear. And why are the humans acting as if they don't see us? "Sir," the sensor officer called out suddenly, "I'm detecting some kind of anomaly in our ship's systems." "What kind of anomaly?" "Our data storage seems to be changing. Records from the past 12 hours are being altered." Kralthox rushed to her station. "Show me." The display flickered, showing logs and records that were visibly changing before their eyes. Flight paths modified. Communications altered. Even crew assignment records shifted and changed. "What is happening?" Kralthox demanded. At that moment, every screen on the command deck suddenly displayed the same image, a simple human face. It was Ambassador Sarah Chen. "Hello, Admiral Kralthox," she said calmly. "By now you've noticed some unusual events taking place." "What have you done with my landing parties?" Kralthox demanded. Sarah smiled slightly. "They're perfectly safe. We've simply redirected them. Your crews will be returned to you unharmed once we've completed our demonstration." "Demonstration? What demonstration? And how are you doing this?" The Admiral's voice rose in anger and confusion. "As for how," Sarah continued as if he hadn't spoken, "I'm afraid that explanation would violate the Council's rules about sharing advanced technology with Class 3 species." Her smile widened a bit. "Ironic, isn't it? Across the fleet, similar. Conversations were happening on every ship. Every captain and commander saw Sarah Chen on their screens telling them the same thing. By Council law, your fleet is now in violation of Earth sovereignty," Sarah said. "You entered our system without permission and attempted an unauthorized landing. We have the right to defend ourselves." "Defend yourselves?" Kralthox laughed, harshly. "With what? You have no fleet. No weapons that could harm our ships." "Oh, Admiral," Sarah's voice was almost gentle. "The Council's assessment of our capabilities was incomplete." At that moment, throughout the Volari fleet, strange things began to happen. Navigation systems locked up. Weapon controls went offline. Life support remained functional, but little else responded to commands. On the inevitable Dominion, Kralthox watched in horror as his ship's systems shut down one by one. "What is this technology?" he whispered. "How can you affect our ships from a distance?" "We've had decades to prepare," Sarah explained. "While the Council watched our official space program, they missed what we were really doing. We knew how the Council treats new species. We knew we needed to be ready. Kralthox tried to order emergency procedures, but nothing worked. His mighty flagship was now drifting helplessly in Earth orbit. "Don't worry, Admiral," Sarah said. "No harm will come to you or your crews. But the Council needs to understand that humanity isn't what they think we are." As she spoke, strange objects became visible around the fleet. Objects that hadn't been there before, or perhaps had been there all along, but somehow hidden from Volari sensors. They were small, geometrically, perfect spheres that glowed with soft blue light. "What are those?" Kralthox asked. "Just a small sample of what the Council failed to notice about us," Sarah replied. "The first sign that their assessment was flawed. Across the galaxy, in the Council chambers on Axiom Prime, alarms began to sound. The Volari fleet had gone silent. All 50 ships no longer responded to communications, and in the center of the chamber, where no human should have been able to access, a holographic image of Sarah Chen appeared. "Greetings, counselors," she said to the shocked aliens. "We need to talk about your classification system." The Galactic Council chamber erupted in chaos. Security alarms blared as the holographic image of Ambassador Sarah Chen stood calmly in the center of the room. This was impossible. No unauthorized transmission could penetrate the Council's defenses, especially not from a Class 3 species. "Turn it off!" High Counselor Zexitera shouted, his scales flashing bright red with alarm. "This is some kind of trick." Technicians scrambled at control panels, but nothing they did affected the hologram. Sarah waited patiently until the initial panic subsided. "My apologies for this dramatic entrance," she said when the room quieted somewhat. "But you left us with few options for communication after cutting all official channels. How are you doing this?" Zextara demanded. "This technology is far beyond what Earth should possess." Sarah nodded. "Yes, according to your assessment. That assessment was incorrect." At that moment, the chamber doors slid open. Council security. Forces rushed in, weapons ready, but they stopped in confusion when they saw who stood in the doorway. More humans. A dozen men and women in simple gray uniforms walked calmly into the room. One of the council members, a being made of crystalline structures that chimed when he moved, pointed at the newcomers. "Impossible. No human ships have approached Axiom Prime." "That's because we were already here," said one of the humans, a tall man with dark skin and serious eyes. "We've been here for years." Zexus Terra looked from the hologram to the humans in growing horror. "Years? How?" "Our security was designed to detect what you expected to find," Sarah's hologram interrupted. "You were looking for primitive human technology. We gave you exactly what you expected to see." Across the galaxy, similar scenes were playing out on dozens of worlds. Beings who had appeared to be members of various alien species suddenly revealed themselves as human agents. Some were in positions of significant influence and access. Back in the council chamber, the tall human stepped forward. "My name is Dr. Marcus Rivera, Earth Defense Intelligence. For over 20 years, we've been studying your society, your technology, and your treatment of new species. This is an outrage," General Krass of the Volari bellowed, his massive fists pounding the table in front of him. "You infiltrated council space. You spied on us." "Yes," Dr. Rivera agreed simply. "After we detected your first observation probes in our system, we needed to understand what we were dealing with. What we discovered was troubling." The hologram of Sarah grew larger, and around her appeared images from across the galaxy. They showed scenes of various lower-class species working in mines, serving as manual labor, or confined to poor sections of advanced worlds. "We learned that the Council's classification system isn't about protecting developing species," Sarah said. "It's about identifying which ones can be safely exploited for resources and labor." Murmurs spread through the chamber. Some council members looked away in shame. Others grew angry at the accusation. "Once we understood the pattern," Dr. Rivera continued, "we made a decision. Earth would appear to be exactly what you wanted to see. A primitive, disorganized world ripe for control. Meanwhile, we would prepare our real capabilities." Zexistara stood, trying to regain control of the situation. Whatever technologies you've managed to develop in secret, you are still one small world against the combined might of the Galactic Council. Your demonstration with the Volari fleet was impressive, but that wasn't a demonstration, Sarah interrupted. That was a warning shot. The hologram changed to show the Volari fleet now surrounded by thousands of small, glowing spheres. Then it shifted again to show similar spheres positioned near critical infrastructure on dozens of council worlds. Power stations, defense systems, communication hubs. We call them sentinels, Dr. Rivera explained. Quantum-entangled nanite clusters. We've been deploying them throughout council space for decades. They can interface with and control any technology they encounter. That's not possible, one of the elder race scientists protested. The energy requirements alone would be beyond anything you've developed, Sarah finished for him. Yes. We took a different path in our technological evolution. While you focused on conventional energy and propulsion systems, we explored quantum consciousness integration. The room fell silent. Even the most advanced council races had only theoretical models of quantum consciousness technology. You're bluffing, General Crass growled. No species develops that kind of technology in such a short time. In response, the humans in the room each raised one hand. Above their palms, tiny versions of the glowing spheres appeared, hovering and pulsing with blue light. We aren't controlled by the technology, Dr. Rivera said quietly. We're connected to it. Each of us can operate multiple forms simultaneously. What you see as Ambassador Chen is just one expression of her consciousness. The hologram smiled. I'm also currently speaking with Admiral Kralthox and supervising the containment of your fleet. My primary body is on Earth having tea with the President. Counselor Elan, one of the more moderate members, leaned forward. If what you say is true, why reveal yourselves now? Why not continue to observe us? Because the Volari fleet was sent to take control of our system, Dr. Rivera answered. We couldn't allow that, and we believe it's time for the Council to reform its practices regarding new species. Reform? Zexitara repeated, his voice rising. You infiltrate our worlds, spy on us for years, hijack our technology, and then demand reforms? Yes, Sarah said simply, because we could have done much worse. The hologram changed again, showing a complete schematic of the Council's central power grid. Key points were highlighted in red. We've had access to your most critical systems for years, she explained. We could have shut down your civilization. Instead, we're requesting a conversation. To demonstrate the truth of her words, the lights in the council chamber dimmed briefly, then returned to normal. General Crass jumped to his feet. This is an act of war. The Volari will never— The Volari will do exactly as the council decides, interrupted a new voice. Admiral Kralthox walked into the chamber escorted by two humans. I've seen what they can do. Our entire fleet was captured without a single shot fired or life lost. This isn't an enemy we want to fight. Zexitara sank back into his chair, his, scales now a dull gray of defeat. What do you want from us? Sarah's hologram reduced to its normal size. 3 things. First, an immediate reclassification of Earth as a full member world with all associated rights and privileges. Second, a complete review of the classification system with input from all affected species. Third, a truth and reconciliation process for those worlds that have been exploited. And if we refuse? Someone asked. Dr. Rivera shook his head. We don't make threats. We're offering partnership. Humanity doesn't want to rule the galaxy or dismantle your civilization. We want to help build something better. As the council members looked at each other in stunned silence, Sarah's hologram added one final thought. Your greatest mistake wasn't underestimating our technology. It was assuming that because we're young as a species we have nothing valuable to offer. Sometimes fresh eyes see solutions that older ones have overlooked. Across the chamber, through the fear and shock, a few council members began to nod slowly in understanding. The galaxy was about to change in ways none of them had imagined, and it all began with a simple miscalculation. 2 days after the humans revealed themselves to the Galactic Council, the emergency session was still ongoing. Some council members had accepted the situation and were working with the humans on reform proposals. Others were not so willing to change. General Krass of the Volari paced in his private chamber aboard his command ship, which had been allowed to remain at Axiom Prime while negotiations continued. His 4 eyes narrowed as he spoke to his most trusted officers. "This is unacceptable," he growled. "The Volari do not bow to the demands of lesser beings. These humans have tricked us, made us look weak." "But sir," one of his officers said cautiously, "you saw what they did to Admiral Kralthox's fleet. Their technology is beyond anything we've encountered." Krass slammed his fist on the table. "Kralthox is a coward. He surrendered without a fight. We still have our main battle fleet. We still have the Sundering Prism." The officers looked at each other nervously. The Sundering Prism was the Volari's most feared weapon, capable of destabilizing a star's core and causing it to collapse. It had only been used once in the history of the galaxy, to end a war that had lasted for centuries. After that, the Council had forbidden its use. "You can't be suggesting," one officer started. "I am suggesting we remind these humans of their proper place," Krass interrupted. "The Council has grown soft, willing to negotiate with spies and infiltrators. The Volari will show the galaxy what happens to those who challenge us." He turned to his communications officer. "Send a coded message to the home fleet. Order them to prepare the Sundering Prism and set course for the human solar system. Target their star." The communications officer hesitated. "Sir, the Council has not authorized." "I am not asking for the Council's permission," Krass roared. "The Volari act in the interest of galactic security. Now send the order." The message was sent. Within hours, the Volari home fleet, consisting of 200 warships and the massive weapons platform that housed the Sundering Prism, departed for the Sol system. Back in the council chambers, Dr. Rivera was in the middle of explaining the human proposal for reformed species classification when his communication device beeped softly. He checked it, and his expression became serious. "I apologize, but we have a situation that requires immediate attention," he said, turning to the council members. "Our monitoring systems have detected the launch of the Volari home fleet, including the Sundering Prism weapon." The chamber erupted in shocked voices. High Counselor Zex Tara turned to the empty Volari seats. "Where is General Krass? This action was not authorized by the Council." "General Krass left Axiom Prime an hour ago on his command ship," one of the human agents reported. "He appears to have ordered this attack independently." Zex Tara's scales paled to a sickly white. "This is a disaster. The Sundering Prism is powerful enough to destroy your entire system. We must send emergency messages. Try to recall the fleet." Dr. Rivera remained strangely calm. "That won't be necessary, Counselor. We appreciate your concern, but Earth is prepared for this possibility." "Prepared?" Zex Tara stared at him in disbelief. "Nothing can stand against the Sundering Prism. Not even our most advanced defensive systems could, as we've been trying to explain." Dr. Rivera interrupted gently. "Humans took a different technological path. We focused on integration with systems rather than overpowering them." He nodded to one of his team members who activated a large holographic display in the center of the chamber. It showed the Sol system, with the approaching Volari fleet as small red dots at the edge. "We invite the Council to observe. This will be educational." 3 days later, the Volari fleet arrived at the edge of the Sol system. On the command deck of his flagship, General Krass looked at the yellow star in the distance. "Begin charging the Sundering Prism," he ordered. "Target the human star's core." The massive weapon began to glow with purple energy. Located on a special platform at the center of the fleet, the prism was the size of a small moon, its crystalline structure focusing unimaginable power. "Sir," one of his officers called out, "there's something strange happening with the human star." Krass looked up at the main view screen. What he saw made no sense. The surface of Sol was moving. Not like the normal churning of a star's surface, but flowing like liquid metal. Parts of it seemed to be separating, revealing a structure underneath. "What is that?" he whispered. The surface of the sun continued to peel away. revealing a massive geometric framework beneath. It was a Dyson swarm, a vast array of interconnected platforms surrounding a contained star. What they had thought was the natural surface of Sol was actually an energy field designed to mimic a star's appearance. Impossible, Crass breathed. No species has ever built a complete Dyson structure. The resources required, the engineering challenges. The real sun was visible now, safely contained within an energy matrix of human design. The fake surface had been a disguise, hiding one of humanity's greatest achievements from prying eyes. Before Crass could issue new orders, something else happened. His fleet began to slow down. The ships around him reported that they were caught in some kind of gravitational distortion field. And then, emerging from what seemed like nowhere, human vessels appeared around the Volari fleet. They didn't look like conventional spacecraft at all. They were patterns of light arranged in geometric shapes, pulsing with energy. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission," the communications officer reported, his voice shaking. The main screen changed to show Admiral Kralthox, the same Volari commander whose fleet had been captured by the humans days earlier. "General Crass," Kralthox said, his voice solemn. "Power down the sundering prism and stand down your fleet." "Traitor!" Crass snarled. "You side with these humans against your own kind?" "I side with the truth," Kralthox replied. "The humans could have destroyed us all when they captured my fleet. Instead, they treated us with respect. They showed me things about the Council, about our history that I never knew." As Kralthox spoke, data began flowing across all screens on the Volari ships. It showed evidence of Council manipulation, of elder races stunting the development of younger species, of resources stolen and histories rewritten. "The humans aren't our enemy," Kralthox continued. "The system that created this imbalance is the enemy. The humans are offering us something the Council never did, genuine alliance rather than subjugation." Crass lunged for the weapon controls. "I will not listen to this. Fire the sundering prism." But nothing happened when he pressed the activation sequence. The massive weapon had gone dark. A new face appeared on the screen. Sarah Chen. "The prism has been deactivated, General Crass," she said calmly. "We couldn't allow you to trigger a chain reaction in our containment field. The results would have been unfortunate for everyone in this sector of the galaxy." All around Crass's ship, the strange human vessels drew closer. They weren't firing weapons or making threats. They were simply waiting. "What are you going to do?" Crass demanded. "Destroy us? Capture us like you did Kralthox's fleet?" "Neither," Sarah replied. "We're going to offer you a choice. Join us in building something better than what the Council created, or return to Axiom Prime and tell them what you've seen here today. Either way, we hope you'll make the right decision." As Crass stared at the screen in disbelief, the truth finally sank in. The humans hadn't just outmaneuvered the Council. They'd been steps ahead all along, prepared for every possibility, and now they were offering mercy when they could have easily destroyed his fleet. For the first time in his long military career, General Crass felt something unexpected: respect for an enemy who had proven to be anything but inferior. 1 week after the Volari fleet's failed attack, representatives from across the galaxy gathered in a new location. The humans had suggested meeting on neutral ground rather than in the Council chambers. They chose an ancient space station orbiting a dead star, a place built by a civilization that had disappeared thousands of years ago. The circular meeting hall was large enough to hold hundreds. Representatives from the elder races sat alongside those from inferior species who had never before been invited to such gatherings. At the center stood a simple round table where the key negotiators would work. Dr. Sarah Chen walked confidently to her place at the table. She was no longer just a hologram but present in her physical form. Beside her stood Dr. Rivera and 3 other human representatives. Across from them sat High Counselor Zexitara and leaders from each of the elder races, including a subdued General Crass. "Thank you all for coming," Sarah began. "This is a historic moment. The first time all spacefaring species have gathered as equals. Zexatara's scales shifted to a cautious blue-green. The Council has agreed to hear your proposals, Ambassador Chen, but many questions remain about your methods and your technology. Sarah nodded. I understand. Deception was never our preferred approach, but our observations of how the Council treated other new species left us little choice. She touched a control, and a holographic display appeared above the table. It showed a timeline of Council interactions with various species over the past 1,000 years. For those who don't know, the full history, Sarah explained. The Council's classification system was originally created with good intentions. It was meant to protect developing species from cultural shock and technological disruption. The display shifted to show various worlds where species had been classified as limited potential and subsequently had their resources extracted. But, over time, the system became a tool for control. Species deemed inferior were denied access to advanced technologies and knowledge. Their resources were harvested. Their development was deliberately stunted. Many of the elder race representatives looked uncomfortable. A few protested, but representatives from the lower classified species called out confirmations of Sarah's claims. We're not here to assign blame, Dr. Rivera said, raising his hands to calm the growing tension. We're here to build a better system, one based on cooperation rather than control. Zexatara leaned forward. And what exactly does humanity propose? Sarah touched the controls again. The display changed to show a new structure, a circle of worlds connected by flowing lines of light. We call it the Galactic Cooperative, she explained. A new form of government where all spacefaring species participate equally. No more classifications that limit potential. No more restricted technologies, no more guardian races controlling others. But some species are simply not ready for advanced technology, argued one of the elder race leaders. Giving unstable civilizations access to planet-destroying weapons would be irresponsible. We agree, Sarah said, surprising many. Technology should be shared responsibly. But responsibility doesn't mean control by the eldest. It means collaborative decision-making with transparent rules that apply to everyone equally. General Crass, who had been silent until now, spoke up. And what guarantees do we have that humanity won't use its technological advantage to become the new controllers? You've shown you can neutralize our most powerful weapons. You've infiltrated our worlds. Why should we trust you? Sarah looked at him directly. A fair question, General. You have no reason to trust us except for one fact. We could have conquered the Council already if that was our goal. The room fell silent as the truth of her words sank in. We don't want to rule the galaxy, Sarah continued. That was never our intention. We want to help build something that works for everyone. Dr. Rivera added, as a show of good faith, we're prepared to share some of our technological advances immediately. Medical treatments that can benefit all species, sustainable energy systems, computational algorithms that can solve problems your scientists have struggled with for centuries. To demonstrate, he activated a small device on the table. It projected detailed schematics for a new type of power generator that could produce clean energy from quantum fluctuations. One of the Council scientists examined the design with growing excitement. This is revolutionary. It would solve the energy crisis affecting dozens of worlds in the outer sectors. And that's just the beginning, Sarah said. But technology alone isn't enough. We need structural change. She outlined the human proposal. A complete reorganization of galactic governance based on contribution rather than age or military might. Open borders. Technology sharing with safeguards determined by collaborative committees. A truth and reconciliation process for species that had been exploited. As Sarah spoke, representatives from the lower species began to nod in agreement. Even some of the elder races seemed interested, particularly when she described the economic benefits of a more cooperative approach. Zexatara listened carefully before responding. Your proposal is intriguing, but such massive changes cannot happen overnight. The current system has existed for thousands of years. We understand, Sarah agreed. We're suggesting a transition period of 50 years. During that time, the old council would gradually hand over responsibilities to the new cooperative bodies. Discussions continued for hours as representatives debated details, raised concerns, and suggested modifications. Throughout it all, the humans remained patient, answering questions and accepting reasonable changes to their proposal. During a break in the proceedings, Zexitara approached Sarah privately. "There's something I still don't understand," he said, his voice low. "How did humans develop so rapidly? No species in our records has achieved quantum consciousness integration in less than a millennium of spacefaring capability. You've done it in barely a century." Sarah smiled slightly. "Perhaps that's because of our history, not despite it." "What do you mean?" "Our conflicts taught us to value cooperation. Our biological fragility drove our technological innovation. Our brief lifespans made us appreciate efficiency," she explained. "We advanced quickly precisely because we embraced our flaws rather than trying to eliminate them." Zexitara's scales shifted to a thoughtful purple. An interesting perspective, one the council has perhaps overlooked. As the negotiations resumed, a message arrived from Earth. Sarah read it and whispered something to Dr. Rivera, who nodded with a smile. "Before we continue," Sarah announced to the gathering, "we would like to offer a demonstration of human terraforming capability, if you'll direct your attention to the main view screen." The large screen showed a barren moon orbiting a gas giant in a nearby system. As they watched, small devices appeared around the moon, creating a glowing network. The surface began to change, atmosphere forming, water appearing, vegetation spreading in fast motion. "This process normally takes centuries with conventional methods," Sarah explained. "Using our quantum-guided nanite systems, we can complete basic terraforming in days, with full ecological stability within a month." The room erupted in amazed whispers and exclamations. Several representatives immediately requested more information on the technology. As the day continued, the mood shifted from suspicion to cautious optimism. Species that had been enemies for generations found common ground in the human proposals. Those that had been oppressed saw hope for a better future. By the time the first session ended, preliminary agreements had been reached on key points. The galaxy was taking its first steps toward a new order, one where potential wasn't limited by age or origin, but by imagination and cooperation. And at the center of it all stood humanity, proving that being young in the galaxy didn't mean having nothing valuable to offer. 1 year had passed since the historic negotiations began. The old council headquarters on Axiom Prime had been transformed. Where once there had been a closed chamber for only the elder races, now there was an open forum called the Galactic, cooperative. Representatives from every spacefaring species had a place at the table. Sarah Chen stood at the large window overlooking the central plaza of Axiom Prime. Ships from hundreds of worlds filled the skies above. Many species that had never been allowed to visit this world were now walking its streets, studying in its libraries and trading in its markets. "Quite a change from when I first came here," she said to the person standing beside her. Former High Counselor Zexitara nodded, his scales now a peaceful blue. "I would never have believed so much could change in a single year. Many of us thought it would take decades if it happened at all." "Necessity is a powerful motivator," Sarah replied with a smile. "Once species realized what was possible with cooperation, they didn't want to wait." The door behind them opened, and Dr. Rivera entered, with several other representatives. "The first graduating class is ready," he announced. Together they walked to a large auditorium where hundreds of beings from dozens of species were gathered. On the stage stood 50 students wearing simple gray uniforms, similar to those worn by the human representatives. "The first class of the Galactic Integration Academy," Zexitara said with pride. Who would have thought the Volari would be among the most eager students? It was true. Among the graduates were several Volari, including a young officer who was related to General Krass. The general himself had become one of the strongest supporters of the new system after seeing what humanity had achieved. Dr. Rivera stepped onto the stage to address the graduates. "Today marks the beginning of a new era for our galaxy. Each of you has completed training in human quantum consciousness integration techniques, Each of you will return to your homeworlds to teach others. This is how we build a truly united galaxy, not through control but through shared knowledge and experience. The graduates placed their hands, or equivalent appendages, over their hearts in the human gesture that had become the symbol of the cooperative. After the ceremony, Sarah met with representatives from 10 worlds that had previously been classified as limited potential species. Their transformations over the past year had been remarkable. The medical technology you shared has increased our lifespans by 30%, said the representative from Narita, a water world. Our children no longer suffer from the genetic disease that plagued us for generations. The sustainable energy systems have allowed us to clean our atmosphere for the first time in centuries, added the delegate from Vox Prime, a heavily industrialized planet. Sarah listened to their reports with satisfaction. This was exactly what humanity had hoped for, helping others to help themselves rather than controlling them. Later that day, she visited the new Center for Galactic History, where a team of historians from various species was working to document the true history of the galaxy. Many records that had been hidden or altered by the old council were being restored. Ela, a historian from a species that had been classified as limited potential for 500 years, showed Sarah their latest discovery. We found evidence that my people once had faster-than-light technology, she explained excitedly. The council took it from us and erased it from our history when they decided we were too aggressive to be trusted with it. And now? Sarah asked. Now we're building new ships using a combination of our recovered knowledge and human quantum guidance systems, Ela said. But this time, we're building them together with former enemies. Working side by side changes how you see each other. That evening, a special gathering was held to celebrate the anniversary of the negotiations. The space station where they had first met had been transformed into a permanent diplomatic center. Representatives from hundreds of worlds mingled freely, sharing food, drink, and stories. Sarah found herself speaking with a being made of crystalline structures, Counselor Terex, who had initially been one of the strongest opponents of human proposals. I must confess something, Ambassador Chen, Terex chimed softly. I believed you were lying about your intentions. I was certain humans would use their technology to become the new rulers of the galaxy. And now? Sarah asked. Now, I understand what truly makes humans different, Terex replied. It's not your technology. It's your perspective. You see potential where we saw limitations. You imagine possibilities that never occurred to us. Terex gestured to where a group of young beings from various species was talking excitedly about a new joint project. Look at them, Terex continued. Species that have been enemies for thousands of years are now working together on terraforming projects, medical research, artistic endeavors. You humans showed us that diversity is strength, not weakness. As the celebration continued, Dr. Rivera joined them with exciting news. The first interspecies consciousness exchange was successful, he reported. A human volunteer and a Volari security officer temporarily experienced life through each other's bodies. Both described it as profound. Sarah wasn't surprised. This had always been part of the human plan, not just to share technology, but to share perspective. To literally walk in another being's shoes, or tentacles, or light form. General Crass approached their group, looking more relaxed than Sarah had ever seen him. Ambassador Chen, he said with a slight bow. I never thought I would say this, but I owe you thanks. For what, General? Sarah asked. For showing me I was wrong, he replied simply. For centuries, the Volari defined ourselves by our military strength. We thought power came from weapons and control. You showed us there is greater strength in adaptation and cooperation. Crass looked out at the gathered representatives. The Volari are finding a new purpose now. Our discipline and organizational skills are being used to coordinate disaster response across the galaxy. We have saved more lives in the past year than in all our military history. As the night went on, Sarah found a quiet moment to step away and look at the stars. She thought about how far they had come in such a short time. The galaxy was transforming. Before their eyes, a voice behind her spoke softly. "They're calling it the human revolution, you know." She turned to see Zexatera. "That's not quite right," she replied. "It's not about humans. It's about what all of us can achieve together." Zexatera's scales shifted to a color Sarah had never seen before, a deep, rich gold that seemed to glow from within. "That right there," he said. "That perspective is why the galaxy will never be the same. You don't seek to rule. You seek to elevate." As representatives from hundreds of worlds departed for home the next day, they carried with them a new understanding that had spread across the stars. The universe rewards not those who seek to rule it, but those who strive to understand it in all its diversity. And among the many species of the galaxy, a saying began to take hold. To err is universal. To adapt, that's human. The Galactic Council had declared humans inferior and lived to regret it. But in doing so, they had unwittingly helped create a better galaxy for everyone.